Hey everybody, I'm Kelly.
And I'm Patty.
And we're here from Women in Reefing. And we are so excited to introduce the Women in Reefing featured videos. In these featured videos, we plan to talk with women from different areas to show just how successful women have become. Our first guest, Krista Pecchia, is indeed a Macro and Goni Queen. In fact, I was so impressed with her macroalgae tanks that I did a video a few years ago showing some of her collection. But you can watch that video another time.
Right now, we are excited to share Krista's story.
Let's start at the beginning. What got you started with saltwater?
Well, I first started off with freshwater. I had some plants and I was like, oh, I love that. That looks so nice, and I was tinkering with freshwater. And then we bought freshwater, which I thought were freshwater, those pea puffers, the little puffer fish, but they weren't doing so good. So I started reading about them and I'm like, oh my God, they're not freshwater, they're brackish. And I brought it up, not really brackish, but a little bit higher. And then they started doing better. And then I found out they were really saltwater fish when they were like older. So then I'm like, look, I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna, make it a saltwater tank. So that's how it started.
We learn from mistakes, right? But what lesson did you take away from that experience?
I always was a person that would read. I feel like the best reefer is someone through, reading and investigation and watching videos and just basically reading. And I would never buy any fish unless I totally investigated, because look at what happened to me with the puffer fish.
Right.
I learned by mistake, but everyone learns by mistake.
Now tell me a little bit about your success with gonies. What does this care look like?
I probably have, 35 gonies, like really cool, rare gonies. I have a lot of glitter gonies. They look like they have glitter in the tissue. I fully believe that you cannot put a goni next to each other. Everyone tries to put gonies next to each other, but every species is different and they don't like other corals don't really like to touch, and those guys do not like to touch. So, like I say, I have 35 and probably more than that because I frag them and I sell them too. And then I have a tank downstairs full of gonies too. So I have a lot down there too. But I have them on these little PVC pipes. I call them my pedestals, and each goni's on a pedestal. And they're not touching, and they might come close, in the flow, but they grow really well when they get lots of flow, and I have tons of flow in my tank. The phosphates, they like that. They like to get fed. I don't feed them all that much, but I have fish in there too, so they get the food from, the mysis or the particles or whatever. So they get fed that way too. And I love my T5s. I have T5s and I have a Reef Bright LED strip. So that's my lighting. I love T5s. I think that grows them like crazy.
Let's talk fish. What fish do you have in the reef tank?
Most of all, my fish in there are fairy wrasses, and then I have some mandarins in there because I have a lot of pods in there. I have a Springeri damsel, and I have really old pajama cardinals.
Nice.
Those things got to be 10 years old. I don't know how they're still alive, but they stayed alive in a crash I had too.
Most people leave the hobby after a tank crash, so tell me more about your experience. Wasn't it heater crash or something?
Yeah, it was a heater.
Yes.
Then I smartened up, and well, the ladies in the They were so sweet to me, and they bought me that Apex. I still have that Apex to this day. So, but that, you got to have something, because you never know. You never know if that your heater's going to fail.
Would you say that that's probably like your biggest hurdle, the worst thing that happened?
Oh yeah, I lost everything. I had a different tank then. The leathers survived and the zoas. I remember I was really into trumpet corals, and I had all different colors and everything. All those died, and they were kind of rare. You couldn't find the pink with the green center. And then I had like all pink, and I've never been able to find that to this day.
Didn't the ladies in the ladies group convince you to keep going?
They like, you got to stick with it, Krista. Please stick with it. And I was ready to give up because I was devastated, because that's like your baby. You put your heart and your soul into reefing, and, women reef really well. I swear, we do. We really take it to heart, and they're like your children.
So, Krista, what made you decide to start a tank dedicated to macros?
Through mistakes that newbies make. I used tap water and all that other kind of stuff, and I started getting this really cool algae on my rocks. Started taking them out, and I got another tank. Then I started dedicating that tank. So basically, that's how I started with macro.
And how did you find the amazing macros that started your collection?
I would go look around at all the local fish stores around, and trust me, there are a lot of good stores and there are a lot of bad stores, but I would always go to the bad stores because I would find this really cool algae, and that's literally how I find most of all my algae. I don't know, I'll see it, I'm like, oh my God, I gotta have that, and then I'll just buy that rock. Really, that's how I find my stuff, by trial and error.
Let's talk about macro care. What are your secrets?
So how I feed my macro tanks is I always change my water with my reef tank water, the dirty water, and that like gives the nutrients, because I feed heavy in my reef tank because I'm like the Goni Queen now. But so you have to feed them a lot. So that water is pretty, it's got a lot of phosphates in there. I try to control it, but I'm always like 0.25 in my phosphates. So I always just change the water in the macro tanks, and I use that water, and then I top off with tap water.
We'll recap your full collection at the end, but what macros are currently in your tank?
I have Laurencia. I have some really weird ones. I don't even know what they are. I call it pink lace. I got that at one of my local fish stores. It was this little tiny piece of, I knew it was going to be really cool. And now it's like exploded. And basically the whole tank's like that. But I have dragon's tongue. I have sargassum, I have blue ochodes or whatever, I have Faccia, I have nemastoma, I have rose petal that you love, blue scroll, I have scroll, I love that. That's one of my favorites.
Do you use the T5s on the macro tank or something different?
Well, I have an AI prime in my major one. I don't like such heavy blues. I like more of a tank on more whiter lights, so you can really see the corals and you could see the macro. Blue lights do the, fluorescing and all that, but I like more of like a white light look.
And what AI settings do you use to keep those macros so happy?
Actually, I got it off of the AI Prime website. It's like they share little different reefers' lightings. They can download that. They want to use that lighting, but it really grows things really nice.
I realize it's still in quarantine, but where in the world did you find the Mermaid's teacup?
I went to Florida recently, And I just so lucked out. One day, my husband and I went to Key Biscayne, and the tide was really far out. And I was walking around because I'm always looking for macro, and I knew I needed some sargassum, and it was all over the place. So I was like, I'm grabbing it, and I didn't really know that I was going to run into all these really weird, rare ones because the tide was so low, so I didn't have a bucket with me, and we flew. And I'm like, oh my God, see if you can find some buckets or cups or something, because it was a Heterosphenia gibisi. There was a whole bunch of it all over the place. You can never find that.
Right.
So I was like grabbing it, and putting it in. He found these like little cups, and I was putting them in there. And I found my Mermaid's cups too. They were all over the place.
Wow.
Because it was so low, they were growing on leaves. They were growing on rocks. They were growing on branches. And had I known, oh my God, I was almost ready to drive and go find a bucket somewhere.
Sounds like something I would do. But how do you keep these rare macros happy?
It started off with this little piece, and it wasn't doing very good. So I'm like, I better start changing the water from the reef tank. So I've been doing that. And I was thinking about putting those in the 55 long, but I have snails in there. And I have some hermit crabs, and they're going to tear that apart.
Oh, yeah,
What is your quarantine method for macros?
I never put it in my macro tank till I know it's safe. So I always dip wild macros in interceptor, like just a quick dip and a quick freshwater dip, just in case there's something bad I don't want. And then I put it in a little quarantine tank and I watch it. So I have that Heterosphenia gibisi down there, and I have the Mermaid cups down there. And that stupid little light that I have on that little tiny quarantine tank is growing the crap out of this stuff. That stuff's so rare. Those two macros are so rare. I don't want to, I cannot take them out of there now. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to have a third tank.
So what is the light on it? What is it? Just like
I have a par 30 bulb. It's just a par 30 bulb that I got on Amazon. And this stupid little LED clip-on light, but it's just a blue and white.
Do you dose any supplements in the macro tank?
I dose in my reef tank, and I use Bionics 2-part. So whatever I use, that water, the macro getting that same. And macros don't really use calcium and alkalinity too much, I don't think, because I always check it and I'm like, oh, you're good. That tank never needs any help. It's just like, I could leave for 3 weeks and it would be fine, except for topping off. And then, the topping off you have to always do. I do dose this. I don't know, maybe every 3 weeks, just like to give it a little,
boost.
And it does have, it's got vitamins and trace minerals and all that. Amino acids, vitamins.
All the goodies.
So let's talk about your macro tank setup. A 30-gallon tall. I just have a hang on the back, and I very rarely change the sponge in there. Every now and then I'm like, oh, it's probably really disgusting in there. So I'll, clean out that HOB. And I have a sterilizer on it just because you never know. You put macro in there, even though I quarantine, you never know, you'll get something in there. I don't want flatworms or anything bad like that. But, like I say, I rinse in fresh water and that broad spectrum, but, eggs live through things. So I have a UV sterilizer, and that's it. And I have 2 pumps, and just that's it, really. I have a 40-gallon downstairs, and I have some macros in there that are pretty cool. I have that Halimeda that has the purple little dots in there. And then I have some weird things. I don't even know what they are. They're really cool too.
With so many things that eat macros, what kind of fish and cleanup crew are safe?
I have a pistol shrimp with a yellow goby. I have one of those in there. I never see them. I don't know. They're in there, I know, but I don't see them. I have a springerry. I have a tail spot, and I have a mandarin, and that's it in that tank. I believe everyone needs a springerry because those things, I've had red planaria flatworms before in the macro tank. I don't know how I got them, but it was terrible. They were really bad. So I put 2 springerry in there, gone. That's why I believe everyone needs a springerry in all of their tanks because those things, they will eat flatworms.
And for cleanup crew, you keep those beautiful frilly black things. Tell me about those.
Black Scutus limpits in there.
Oh, yeah, I've seen your pictures.
Yeah, and in my reef tank, they breed like crazy in there. And I have a canister filter that I have in my reef tank, my 125. And then when I clean my canister, there's millions of babies. So I'm like picking those suckers out off of the sides of the canister filter. And then I just throw them right back in the macro tank. So I have millions in there, but they never eat macro. They just eat like, I don't know what they eat, but they like dirty. And like if they like to live in a canister, you know they like dirty.
Right. I know I got most of my best macros from you. Do you still trade?
Yeah, I traded with people too that I know. I'm administrator for the macroalgae in the reef tank. And so whenever I see someone post something or they have something I want, I'll like reach out, hey, this is what I got, can we trade? And I love trading with people. If they have something I don't have, I want it. Yeah, I'll trade you my good stuff. Never my hemostoma though.
No. Do you also sell macroalgae?
I don't really like selling, like trading. People ask me all the time. They're always messaging me, can I buy? I really don't like shipping because first of all, if it dies, then I used to do it. And then I got a bad taste in my mouth from it. People would rip me off. They would charge back or whatever, stuff like that. It's just like not worth it, and just for, I don't know. And to ship, it's expensive. Overnighting is like what, $45, $50. So yeah, I definitely sell my macro at the local frag swaps. At the WIR frag swap in Cleveland, that's our gigantic one. That frag swap uses Reef Trader. I'm a reef chick at the WIR swap. And so you would just like sell under your name what you have for sale, and then people could do pre-sales. And usually I would sell that way. I would never bring extras. But this last time in February, I was going to get a booth. I had a lot of corals I fragged and I was going to sell, and my macro and everything. But then with COVID, it didn't, happen. Maybe, when things get better, hopefully COVID will be over soon. And then I might try another booth next year. So.
And what is your message to other women in reefing?
I'm always like want to help women, like new people getting in the hobby. You can message me anytime. I'm here for you, and I can share my thoughts and my visions on what I did. I can try to help, but I'm here for any women. I think women are equally like guys. I learned from a guy too. Like I had a lot of questions from him too. He helped me a lot. Like I say, I listen to anybody I read and all that kind of stuff. But I think there's more women now. I feel like I see more women now. There's more groups and women helping each other. I trade with a lot of women. So I do a lot of reef keeping with women.
If someone wants to learn more about macroalgae, do you recommend any groups?
Yeah, the macroalgae in the reef tank, that's one of my favorite groups because it's macroalgae.
also wondering, what are the macros that you cannot keep?
I've always wanted nemostoma. I have that. It dies off and comes back, and then sometimes it won't come back. That's like my favorite. It's so beautiful. I love that. You and I tried so many times. I tried stringing it. I tried gluing it. I tried putting bridal veil on it. Nothing. It will never, ever grow once you try to put it. It has to have the original rock that it came off. It's something about that. It's seated and it's in there. You just can't force it. It's very difficult. It doesn't want to listen.
Right.
And it has a lifespan. Like, it'll grow really beautiful and do really well and get really, really big. And then just like it starts to get algae on it, and then forget about it. You might as well just forget about it. It's going to die. But another thing that I loved so much that I don't know why it just died off, and I'm searching high and low for that, is the string of pearls. Yeah, that's one thing I'm really searching for. All I'm asking for is that much.
Right.
It's advantageous for you to give me a little piece of it, because if you lose it, you're never getting it back again. So give it on up.
So how do you keep the good macros thriving without growing a bunch of nuisance algae?
Something has to compete with it. For instance, my tank is mostly red algae because none of the green can grow. Somehow like competes with each other. I've tried some green, but it doesn't really like it. With hair algae is hair algae. And I think that's one reason I lost a string of pearls too, because it got hair algae on it.
Yep.
And when something gets it on, it's hard to get it off. You just gotta take it off and, try to pull it off and scrape it off. And then hopefully, I use a lot of peroxide. If I see something that I don't want, like green bubble algae, that's the devil. I hate green bubble algae. I'll take rocks out and I'll scrub it with peroxide. And I think that probably peroxide, but sometimes you might lose the macro from peroxide, but
you got to do something.
Yeah, you can't just take something from the wild.
Right.
You don't want a catastrophe.
And do you have any advice for new women in reefing that are just starting out?
Stick with it. In general, like reef keeping, not macro. Definitely use an RODI for a reef tank. And just good husbandry. And if they want a macro tank, tap water. Just ask a lot of questions and read.
Yes.
Reading, and ask questions. Preferably in a women's group. To ask me anything. I'm here for any women, any questions they want, just reach out to me.
And now for a quick recap of Krista's collection. If the information is too fast, don't worry, you can find all of this in the description.
Thank you so much, Krista, for sharing your story and beautiful tanks. Amazing.
Absolutely. And we'll see you all on the next Women in Reefing featured videos.
Make sure you're subscribed to all of the Women in Reefing channels so that you never miss a feature video or any other cool plans we're going to be rolling out pretty soon.